Okay, good evening everybody, and thank you, Francis. You won't believe how nervous she was about coming out to speak. My name is Eamonn Corcoran. I'm Chief Executive of the Irish Payroll Association, or IPASS as we're better known. And we're unique here tonight. We're not asking you to do our course instead of CIMA or CPA or ACCA or the Institute of Taxation. We're asking you to do our course as well as ACCA or CIMA or CPA. I'm a member of the ACCA myself and the Institute of Taxation. And I'm now in my 40th year, believe it or not, of working in taxation. I spent 20 years in revenue, and 12 of those years were as a revenue auditor. And how the qualification came around was that during my years as a revenue auditor, it never ceased to amaze me how many companies had big underpayments, tax issues. And when I worked in practice for one of the big practices, Deloitte, for a number of years as a consultant also. And again, the same issue, revenue audits, people having big problems, big underpayments. And when a client has an underpayment, the first thing to do is to turn to their auditors and say, how come you didn't tell me about this problem? How come you didn't spot this when you did your annual audit, gave us a clean bill of health? And what people don't realise is when your auditor does your accounts, he doesn't give you a clean bill of health. He says, this is what your records show. They're the accounts based on your records. This is what happened. And we did a spot check and it seems in order. But they don't examine the workings of your various taxes. Now, the larger the company, the more problems, in my experience. And as a revenue auditor, I wasn't going into the company saying, I wonder what mistakes these are making and what problems they're going to encounter. I went in saying, I wonder are these making the same mistakes everybody else makes, the same problems everybody else has? And the answer is yes. And that continues to this day. So when I left practice to set up my own consultancy, I decided to do some training courses in the operation of VAT and PAYE, because these are the big problem areas. And just to put it into perspective, payroll is the poor relation of taxes. Not important. I'm in my 40th year working in taxation, and I tell you, I'm delighted people think it's not important because it's been a great opportunity for us to develop IPASS. PAYE, VAT is the biggest source of revenue the government collects every year, closely followed by PAYE. I think in 2009 there was 10.1 billion collected in VAT and 9.8 billion collected in PAYE alone. PRSI came in at like 7 or 8 billion, and corporation tax was way back when we were 5 billion. So PAYE and PRSI combined are most companies' biggest tax liabilities, and by and large they are managed, quantified and managed by unqualified staff with little or no support. We estimate there are approximately 200,000 employers in the country, and we estimate that there are about 50,000 people working in payroll. A lot of people would be so small that they wouldn't have a specific payroll person. Payroll would be done by a bureau might do payroll for 20 companies, 100 companies, whatever it may be. But our estimate, we did a survey some years ago, and only 20% of people working in payroll do it as their full-time job. As an accountant technician, you probably do accounts and other duties and payroll. It's one of the jobs you do. It's not the full-time job you do. But PAYE and PRSI combined are most companies' biggest tax liabilities, and they're managed totally by staff with no specific payroll qualifications and little or no support. And it is vastly underestimated how complex and difficult payroll is. Now, when we set up the payroll qualifications some years ago, we're now starting our 11th year, we sat down and decided what do people operating payroll need to know. Now, I studied the Institute of Taxation many years ago. I also studied the ACCA, and no disrespect to those qualifications. They're excellent qualifications. I would certainly recommend them to anybody, but I did a lot of studying on subjects I've never ever used since I passed those exams. I studied topics which I never use in real life, and we decided we would not let that happen. We would concentrate on what people need to know, even if they don't know they need to know it. So we started off with, surprise, surprise, employment law. What? If you operate payroll, you have to know how to calculate holiday entitlements for full-time staff, for part-time staff, casual staff, job sharers, their bank holiday entitlements, their annual leave entitlements, payment of Wages Act, how you pay people, when you can pay people, what you can deduct and what you cannot deduct from them. You've got things like carers leave, parental leave, maternity leave, and the implications of sick pay, illness benefit, maternity benefit, how it interacts with the company's pay policy. Then you move on to PAYE. Now, as Francis said, most people believe that operating PAYE is punching figures into a computer and the computer does all the work. I can assure you can have the best computer system in the world, but it won't compensate for the lack of knowledge of the operator. The payroll personnel is the one who makes the important decisions. What's taxable, what is not? What's exempt, what is not? What PRSI class applies? Because the software can't make those decisions. Once the important decisions are made by the payroll operator, the software will do the calculations and produce the reports, be they payslips or P35s. But the important decisions are made by payroll personnel. And we've seen over the years time and time again, the biggest companies are the ones with biggest mistakes, biggest problems, because nobody specialises in payroll. And everybody just assumes it's simple, and it's not. Frances mans our technical helpline. She's one of 2 people on our technical helpline, and I sometimes have to get involved because the number of queries we get is incredible, and the level of detail we get is incredible, and they cannot get answers. They can't get answers from their accountants, they can't get answers from revenue, because nobody appreciates how complex payroll is. To put it into perspective, I was speaking to one of our lecturers last week at our graduation, and I knew she'd changed jobs about 6 months ago. She joined a very large multinational, who you all know, whose product some of you may drink, and I shall say no more. But I asked her, how's it going? She said, great, loved it. I said, did you find any surprises? She says, what? Surprises? You won't believe how bad they were. Nobody was managing their BIK. They had a fleet of company cars, and nobody knew who was driving what car. HR were giving cars to people without notifying payroll. People were getting upgrades and changing cars and payroll weren't notified. There were staff taking vans home at evenings and weekends, and they didn't realise there was a tax benefit in kind. There were senior management who had a company credit card and nobody was checking the actual statements to see whether any private expenditure. There were home phone bills being paid without understanding the tax implications of that. There are people on the wrong PRSI classes, people paying too much PRSI, people paying too little PRSI. The list went on and on, typical of what we find. Now, apart from PAY and PRSI, we have an income levy, we have a health levy. There are a large number of the population are exempt from paying the health levy, which is 4% of your salary. Now, if you're on 30,000 a year, that's a difference of 12,000 a year. That's 100 euros, 1,200 euros a year. Sorry, that's 100 euros a month out of your net pay, and there are people paying that unnecessarily. And you have this constant, the same issue come up time and time again. And the bigger the company, the more the problems. So we find that payroll is underestimated, undervalued. But if you do our course, I promise you, it'll make a big difference. Because one thing about our qualification, it gives you an opportunity to make a difference in your workplace. If you get a job tomorrow as an accountant technician, or as an accountant, or a tax consultant, the chances are you're going to go into a job which is a predefined role, predefined issues you're going to deal with. And if you do a good job, it might be noticed, but you're hardly going to make a big difference. You're going to do the job you're expected to do. But if you go into a job with response for payroll, with our qualification, I guarantee you it'll give you a real opportunity to make a difference. That lady I spoke to last week, she has turned things on their head in this company. For the first time, they now have somebody who understands the operation of the BIK system thoroughly, about the exemptions from BIK for the PRSI, and she has done a marvellous job, and she's getting recognition for it, and she has made a difference, and they've noticed the difference she has made. So finally, I would say we also have a qualification of certified VAT technician, very much the same thing, the issues that people get wrong in companies. VAT, our most complex tax by far, yet the only specific VAT qualification in the country is our qualification. And I should say our courses are all HETAC accredited at level 6, which is a special purpose award, purely because the amount of hours involved in doing our course. Why I say you should do our course in addition to the others, it's an ideal add-on qualification. If you do a course on its own, you might get a job in payroll, but it's the extra dimension it gives you as an accountant technician, as an accountant, that is the real value. And I promise you, it can make a difference. You can make a difference in your workplace. Your performance will be noticed. You will bring efficiencies and savings and avoid problems with revenue. And to finish it off, our course is over 2 10-week terms, 1 night a week, very manageable. If you've done your accountant technician qualification, you'll have no problem with our course. Now, you need to more than just 10 classes, obviously, but it's well within your grasp. As I said, I'm not asking you to do this instead of accountancy or industry taxation, but in addition to. And if you do know more about just your accountant technician, this is an ideal add-on for that course, for that qualification. Gives you an extra into your bow. Anybody looking for a payroll personnel now, if you see jobs advertised for payroll personnel, they usually say must have IPASS qualification or must be CPT qualified. That's a measure of the recognition that the qualification is gained in a short period of time. And the reason it's gained that recognition is because of the difference people have made going back to the workplace with the knowledge they've gained in doing the course. A very interesting course. Most payroll people love their job. And I love my job too. Believe it or not, there are people who don't realise that tax is very interesting, fascinating, really. Everybody who does the course, the number of people says to me, I really enjoy that course because it affects you personally. You will learn about things that affect you personally. Employment law, PAY, tax, PRSI, levies, you, your family, your friends, and it's really very rewarding. An interesting course, personally rewarding, professionally rewarding. It will help you make a difference in your job. I guarantee you that. And the bigger the company, the more problems are going to be. You just need someone like you to go in there and sort them out. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. I'll be with Francis inside to talk to you if you have any questions later on. Thank you.